this video, we'll create an interesting interior piece from a retro radio. By using a couple of life hacks and an unusual technique, we'll end up with a fully functional receiver that's 55 years old. As you've probably guessed, the body will be made from wood with epoxy. For the wood I chose walnut. It's a very pleasant material to work with, and it looks great too. We won't need the bark, so let's remove it. First we remove it roughly, using any means possible. And once the main layer is gone, we clean it up with a scraper like this. By the way, from the name Petrograd, you can guess that this tool is made here in our country. And honestly, I'm really glad that we have such cool domestic manufacturers appearing, who are just as good as imported ones. The tool is made with care, I can confidently recommend it. Then I saw off the required piece. In the end, I need to get a long, narrow blank, so that the body looks seamless. Once I have a blank like that, I even it out on the jointer. This is one of the most satisfying moments in the process, because you immediately get a perfect result, even in areas that are difficult to work with. Of course, all of this is thanks to the helical cutter head that's installed on this jointer. And once one side is perfectly flat, we process the opposite side, but this time using the planer. So, pass after pass, until we reach the desired thickness of the blank. As you can see, the quality of the finish, it's just as good as after the jointer. And that's no coincidence, because the planer uses exactly the same cutter head, but this one has 138 blades. Before carefully pouring the epoxy over the blank, I first coat it with a layer of varnish to thoroughly seal the active air release. This important step helps to significantly minimize the number of bubbles in the pour. The next step is to mix the resin. This is a compound called UUD Pro. It's perfect for this purpose, as well as for many others. As always, you'll find links to all the materials used in the video description. So, the resin is ready. Now we prepare the mold. It's all pretty simple here. A wooden block lined with tape, silicone sealant around the edges, and voila. To prevent the wood from floating up in the resin, you absolutely need to secure it in place. There are many ways to do this, but I use this one. A wooden block and a pressing stick. And then we just pour it in, like from a bucket. While the resin is drying, let's move on to the most interesting part. We need to take apart an old radiogram, which by the way is in excellent working condition. After the radiogram is disassembled and all the measurements are taken, we glue the panel. To make the piece look cohesive, I decided to use the same walnut wood. After the panel has dried, I run it through the planer And the next step is to cut it to size. Using a CMT router bit, we make a cutout. And if the bit is made properly and with care, the machining looks exactly like this. Shavings should fly off the router bit's blades. Not dust, not chunks, but thin, clean shavings. By the way, we also use their bits for CNC machines. And you'll see the quality of the machining a little later. This lower part of the radiogram is made exactly like the original. In the meantime, the epoxy has cured, and we take the blank out of the mold. As you can see, the casting is far from perfect, and there are various marks left, including from the tape. I was well aware that this would happen, so I made sure to leave extra thickness. But the wooden bars we used to press down the blank are best removed, while the resin hasn't fully cured yet. Otherwise you'll have to use an axe. But that's not a problem in fact. It's even enjoyable. Well, of course, if you have an axe like this one from the Petrograd factory, the next step is to run this epoxy board through a thickness sanding machine. This machine brings the blank to a uniform thickness all around, also sands it, and in doing so removes any imperfections left after pouring. By the way, it handles epoxy really well too. But you do need to clean the drum from time to time, since resin dust clogs up the sandpaper. So, the panel has been brought to a uniform thickness, and now we need to assemble it into a box, but in such a way that the box looks seamless. To do this, we cut grooves, and at the joints we make a 45-degree bevel, so that in the end we get 90-degree connections. We replace this unsightly plywood partition with a solid panel naturally made of walnut. Speakers will be installed into it later. First, we make a rough cut, and then, using the old partition as a template, we use a flush trim bit to replicate its shape. To make the enclosure transparent, I sand it with fine sandpaper, starting with 240 grit and finishing with 600, and then coat it with glossy varnish. This is a 2-component automotive varnish. These joints here haven't been cut all the way through. There's about half a millimeter left there. Because of this, it will be possible to fold them and ultimately get a solid enclosure. I pour epoxy resin into this seam and slowly start folding the walls together. The resin gradually rises, filling the joints, and the excess is squeezed out and remains on the tape. That's how the assembly is done. After the resin has dried, I move on to the exterior of the case. It needs to be polished. For this, we start sanding with 240 grit sandpaper and finish with 2000 grit. But such fine grit sandpaper is used wet, meaning you sand with the addition of water so that dust doesn't clog it instantly. However, it's important to understand that the resin is adjacent to wood, and wood doesn't particularly like water, so we first treat it with oil and only then use water and fine grit sandpaper, starting from 600 grit. And the final stage of polishing looks like this. We apply polish and use a machine to turn the matte surface glossy. Actually, this is an automotive polishing technique, so I recommend looking for all the materials in specialized stores that sell auto body paint supplies. We also made the back partition out of walnut. It just needs to be sanded and properly finished. The back cover was also hand-drawn, as we are making it from scratch, because the original was in very poor condition. But in the end, we achieved a perfect replica. Since the case will be transparent, all the internal components will be visible. That's essentially the whole point of the project, so we thoroughly cleaned them. And finally, the most anticipated moment, the final assembly. the final assembly, I decided that overall the product looked a bit dull, so I decided to apply an interesting effect. I had this idea for a long time, and it turned out to be just the right moment to use it. I took some liquid epoxy resin, poured it into a paint sprayer, set the pressure to minimum, and as a result the gun just spat out droplets of epoxy. As a result, the resin will dry and create a wet surface effect. It's kind of like a surface after rain. In my opinion, it looks interesting, but I'm really curious to hear what you think. So, this is the result I ended up with. Now we need to send the radio to the company Artel, Danila, Makar and Brothers. You can watch a review of it on their channel, and also listen to how the music sounds.